Hello everybody, Mannix here. Going to be doing a knife review. This is on the Buck 110 Slim Select. I think that's what it's called. I pull out my phone here, I have the specs, I'm going to get right into it. It is, yes, the Buck 110 Slim Select. Let's get right into it. This is basically like a modern / tactical version of the Buck 110. Rolling a picture right now if you're not familiar with that knife, although I'm pretty sure you are. But regardless, that's a more traditional style folding knife. And a personal favorite of mine. I don't particularly use them, but I like how big and heavy they are. They're big old wide handle, like a smooth and beautiful, very elegant yet robust traditional folding knife. Really cool. But this is basically a modern spin on that. So we have a much slimmer handle here with GFN handle scales, glass-filled nylon. A lot of you may be familiar with fiberglass reinforced nylon, which is FRN. It's basically the same stuff. It's basically just glass and plastic melted together. There's slight variants of it. Sometimes they just put different names on it depending on the company. But it's glass and plastic mixed together, which makes it a hard material that won't break on you very easily. You can slam this on a sidewalk all day long and it will not even crack on you. We have a pocket clip right here, which is tip up right-hand carry. Oh no, sorry, tip up only, but you can swap it to the left side, thank God. We have dual thumb studs here instead of just a nail nick, which the original Buck 110 has. This has the dual thumb studs. And other than that, it's basically the same knife. I'm going to get into the specs right now. So, it's the same length, I believe, as the Buck 110, but there's a lot of differences in specs. So, 8.625 inches overall length. We have a blade length of 3.75 inches, so on the longer, medium-ish side. The cutting edge itself, however, is 3.25 inches. The blade width is 0.875 inches, so it's on the slimmer side. I mistake that for the blade thickness. It doesn't matter. Blade thickness is 0.12 inches. And yes, it is still on the slimmer side. I would call that a drop point. Some may argue that's a clip point. I'm going to call it a drop point. It's somewhere in between, probably. Who cares? The blade material, it just says 420 on this website, but I'm pretty sure that's 420 HC because Buck uses that a lot on their knives. I'll get into that in a moment. It's saying clip point still. Alright, I guess it's somewhat of a clip point, I guess. Yeah, clip point, whatever. It's a hollow grind satin finish, it says on the blade, but from what I'm seeing, this looks more like a stone wash finish. That is not a satin finish. Maybe there's a different type I'm looking at, in the specs, but that's definitely a stone wash finish. No questioning that. Love it, by the way. What okay, what I'm reading, it says the frame / liner. Is this even the same knife? Hang on. Yeah, it's the same knife. I'm looking at the specs right here. It says the frame / liner is stainless steel, although there are no liners in here. It's just the GFN. It might be referring to this spec here, this sort of back plate. What would you call it? That is the... I don't know what that... I completely forgot what that is called, that piece right there. But that's probably what it's referring to, because it doesn't have any liners. It's linerless, which contributes to its very lightweight, which says is 2.8 ounces. But let's find out about that. This is I have my little weed scale here. And no, I don't measure weed with it. I actually got this specifically for reviews a long time ago. But it's paraphernalia for drugs. That's what a lot of people use these things for. My scale is saying 2.96 ounces. The website I was looking at was claiming 2.8. Yeah, I'm consistently getting 2.9. Oh, it's slipping from... Okay, yeah, 2.96. The reason I trust my scale and not websites in particular is because I had these little weights for my computer mouse. It's a gaming mouse, and it's total nerd, like adjust the weight of the mouse. And they were, I can't remember, like 1.5 grams. Like, they were each like a really, really light amount, but they were each labeled for what they were. And when I placed them on the scale, they were showing up the exact same thing that was labeled on the weights. So, I don't know. Sometimes the weights are all over the place depending on the website. I don't know, but maybe I shouldn't trust it. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. It's under 3 ounces. It's a sub 3 ounce knife, so it's on the lighter side. It's light. It is a lockback. We have a modern / tactical version, if you will, of the original Buck 110. That's what this is. And I'm not a huge fan of it. When I saw it, I was like, ooh, long knife. It kind of reminds me of the Cold Steel Voyager, the original Cold Steel Voyager, some of my favorite knives ever, collecting those things. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to just buy it. And I like how it was a red handle, get something that's not just black. Love my black and gray, obviously, but sometimes I want some color. So, picked out the red one, and you know what, getting to use it stuff, and I did not watch any reviews, nothing like that. I just bought it, and I was going to make a review on it. This was over a year ago when I got this. So it does succeed at being like a modern version of the Buck 110. If you're used to the Buck 110, you carry that. Not that many people do, and probably a lot of older dudes do. It's a great knife, I like it. But it's not as efficient, I suppose, as our newer knives. It's heavy, it's it's chunky, there's no pocket clips, it's a little bit more difficult to carry. I love pocket clips. I almost refuse to carry a knife without a pocket clip. I know that's total snobby of me, but I don't like the knife freely floating around in the pocket and getting on the side and banging into the side of my leg. I like it just clipped in my pocket. It's always in a familiar spot, always goes back in that familiar spot, not in the way of anything, not bouncing around, knocking anything else inside of my pocket. I like pocket clips. I love pocket clips on folding knives, so I typically don't carry non-pocket clip knives, typically. But sometimes if I'm feeling wild one day, I might. But yeah, if you're used to the Buck 110, this basically, I would say this is a big improvement on it, but I don't want to say it's better. You know, it's kind of weird. You know, that's technically what improvement means, is something better. It's just, it's more efficient, I guess. You get more out of your knife, as in it's lighter weight. You don't have to, having a heavier knife, I generally consider a downside, unless you're doing like really heavy work, like chopping with it. But then again, why would you chop with a folding knife? You know, see, it's hard to say. I don't want to flat out call the traditional knives worse than the modern knives, but I do believe modern knives have they're further in technology. You know, we have improved in technology, I believe. I'm not really a traditionalist. I know some traditionalists will be mad at that statement and not like me saying that, but that's how I see it. Like, think of like old keypad phone from the early 2000s to smartphones we have in 2020. There's just no comparison. The smartphones can do a lot more. They're better. We further in technology. Some people may be able to consider an advantage over the older phones, I suppose, but we've improved in technology, and that's how I kind of see it with knives. So this is like the improved version of the Buck 110. You could argue the fact that it's slim is not necessarily an improvement. It takes up a little less space, but sometimes I do like the thicker handles. I like how they're more hand-filling. There's more to hold on to, less slippery, etc. And this pattern they have right here is not terribly slippery. I'm not a huge fan of it either, though, but whatever. Pin construction, so you can't take it apart. You can't take apart the original Buck 110 either. So I would say most people online prefer the slimmer handles. That's what they say anyway. I like the thicker handles, honestly, but I can go either way. I'm not very particular with knives, so before I start babbling on and on and on, basically the point I'm trying to make is that this is, I believe, somewhat of a successful modern version of the Buck 110, but the biggest problem I have with it is that it's not quite up to par compared to the other endless modern folders we have out these days. Yes, we do have GFN, is that what they call it? GFN handles, and it's slim, it's lighter weight, we have a pretty decent pocket clip. By the way, I don't mind this design. I guess it's kind of like an anvil right there. I like the way it looks. I don't really care for the anvil that much, but the pocket clip works pretty well. If anything, it's slightly on the tighter side, but it's fine. I haven't had any issues with it. And guess what? It's loop over. A lot of people prefer the loop over clips. I don't. I like it if it's a little bit lower riding, but I don't really care either. It's fine. It's very covert. You're not going to see very much poking out of your pocket there if you're into that. And again, swappable, so it is a 110% ambidextrous folder, as you can see here. But the problem I have with it is that it's, one thing I didn't mention yet, it doesn't flick out very well at all because we have a very strong back spring, I guess. It's not really a spring, it's a torsion bar. It's a torsion bar for the lock back. It's strong, so it makes it difficult to flick it out. You really got to give it a thwack. You cannot do this without any wrist movement. You risk cutting yourself because my thumb kind of slips there. You really got to give it a thwack. So you can flick it out. I kind of take that back. I shouldn't say you can't. You can, just not easily. It's on the stiffer side. I don't know. I like it, but compared to so many other folders we have out there, it doesn't really even have the nostalgia factor or classic factor to it either. It's a modern version of the Buck 110, which is pretty successfully done, but it's just, if you're looking for a functional, efficient knife that's lightweight and slim, it's okay, but I think there's just better options out there. It's not bad. It's not a bad knife by any means, but compared to what else we have there for the price, by the way, this retails at $46, $42, so if you do find these, they're anywhere from $20 to $30. Not terrible, not a bad price point. Very functional knife. It's just not quite as functional as other folders that are out there. I don't like how the lockback's so low riding. I don't know if there really is an advantage to that, other than maybe you can't accidentally disengage it very easily while using it. I just don't like how it's all the way down there. You have to use two hands to close it. It's just kind of on the stiffer side. I would have preferred if it was thicker, You know, just like the same girth, the same width of the original Buck 110 with these handles and still lightweight. There's not really much else to say about it. It's a little bit slower. It's more efficient than the Buck 110, but it's not quite as efficient as its many other counterparts that are out there, for the money anyway. However, there is an advantage to this. It is USA made. So if you're into that, that's good. Good thumb studs, by the way. They're done right, as you can see there. Again, you can't take it apart. Not that I don't think you will need to take it apart, but it is what it is. No up and down. A little bit of side to side. That's fine. Kind of unfinished look right back here, though, but again, not a big deal. Yeah, for the money, you can't really go wrong, but at the same time, I think there's just better options out there. It's not quite traditional enough to be a traditional knife, because it's not. The Buck 110 is a traditional folder, I feel like. It's a modernized version of the Buck 110, and they have successfully done that. If that's what you want, then by all means get it. It's not a bad knife at all. It's very good, in fact. It's just, I think there's slightly better options out there for the same price, but it's just a knife that's not really that exciting to me, but it's interesting. You know, I'm glad Buck kind of threw it together for us. Yeah, it's just, it is what it is. If it's something that interests you, go buy it. You're not going to be disappointed, I don't think. It's a good knife. It's just, I've seen better knives out there. Oh yeah, the blade steel. Yeah, probably the most important part of the knife, the blade steel. I didn't even talk about it. 420 HC. Buck does a very, very good job with their 420 HC. A lot of people are like, ew, 420, that's worse than 440, and 440 sucks. Well, 440 is a cheaper blade steel, but if the heat treatment is done right, you're not really going to notice that much of a difference compared to the moderate, the medium grade blade steels that are a lot more expensive. I would say the steel itself is probably the lowest factor when it comes to how well the steel will perform. It's all in the heat treatment and how they treat the steel itself more than the composition of the steel. The composition of the steel still matters, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. Absolutely it matters, but it's all in the heat treatment. You can have a poorly heat treated S30V or 154CM or something like that. It will suck compared to a very well-treated 420HC like you see right here. Buck does a very good job with their blade steels, but I don't cut stuff that much. I don't just cut and cut and cut and cut and cut and to really notice the difference. I don't resharpen my knives very often because I don't use them that often. I carry them absolutely everywhere I go, every single day of my life, but I just use them for when tasks come up, like opening packages, opening mail, sometimes cutting down boxes, and sometimes I use them for work when I have jobs where I'm cutting open boxes and stuff. Like, very simple things like that is what I use my knives for. So I don't really notice a huge difference in blade steel. I don't really require a better blade steel. So maybe I'm not the best person to be talking to when it comes to the differences in blade steels and the compositions and the heat treatments. But what I can say from my experience, it's all in the heat treatment. Heat treatment is what matters a little bit more, I think, compared to the composition of the blade steel. Anyway, that's it. I like it. Don't love it. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy one, but it's interesting. I like how Buck made a modern spin on the Buck 110. It's interesting. So if you're into your modern folders, but you want sort of a traditional style modern folder, you like the Buck 110, but it's a little bit too heavy for you, and you want something a little slimmer, something that's going to deploy a little faster, give this a shot. It's absolutely worth the money. So that is it. That is the knife right there.